Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the CKC channel. I'm your host, Fire Master Calvin Klaassen, and welcome to another Reflections. Things are getting more exciting every week, guys. We've had last week we've had a player that won the SA Championships, I think in 1967. FM David
Mm.
Friedgood, and yeah, about I think about 50 years later, I managed to win it. So very interesting history we looking at. And this time around, we've got a three-time SA champion and the founder of Chess Cube. And London will do the proper introduction. So we're gonna switch over to the library, and then London, you can take over. Over to you, London.
Thank you, Calvin, and good evening, viewers. It gives me great pleasure tonight to interview a four-time SA champion because Calvin, I missed one in that early mid '80s, so my
Okay.
apologies there to Mark. And what was very exciting for me, Calvin, was when I was able to track Mark down about a month ago. He and I just chatted a bit, and he agreed to come on the show when a convenient moment arrived. And tonight, to the viewers, Mark Levitt, I've met Mark probably about 91, 92. So unbelievable, Mark, 30 years that you and I
Amazing.
have met and probably played again a bit against each other. And I can assure everybody in those early years, Mark gave me a beating every time we played.
I'm not sure if that's true.
Only after I learned from, but after I learned from some of the losses, I was able to give a decent game. But Mark, four-time SA Opens. Thank you for joining us, Mark.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's great to see you again. I feel like I haven't seen you for like a year, but it's probably been like almost a half a decade. And Calvin as well. Yeah, it's nice to be here.
Mark, thank you very much. And Mark, how did it all start? I mean, I noticed from your resume that, I mean, you won the SA Championship in that mid '80s while you were still a student there at UCT, it seems. So you must have started to play probably in your teens or early. How did it all start?
Yeah, I started quite late relative to most chess players. So I learned the moves when I was just, I think, 11 and a half, almost 12. And I just played with some friends, you know. I learned all the wrong rules. And then my father bought me a chess book. It was Fisher Spassky Move by Move, where you could actually follow all the games without actually having a chessboard. So I used to lie at night just like reading through that, and I was fascinated immediately. And then, like, you know, I started buying a few books. I got an endgame book by Norwood, and then very quickly I just got a huge passion for it. I played at school. So I started at Boston Primary School in Belleville, and then at Settlers. Yeah, and then but yeah, I had a problem because I didn't do a lot of homework. I was very bad at that. But I would spend about 6 hours a day doing chess, and my mom would walk in and say, "Mark, will you stop playing chess and do some homework?"
Well, little did you know that that one day you'd also be the founder of Chess Cube, which we're still going to come to later. And Mark, when you were playing, I mean, you were playing in that era in the '80s. Charles de Villiers, Piet Kruin, and those guys that became legends. And you seem to have had that passion to play right through your student years. How did you you complete your BCom and then still win the SA Championship on the side? Tell us a bit about that.
It was a struggle. So I didn't realize when I went into my first year of a BCom that you actually had to study. I thought it was like school where you just learn that like in the morning of the exam and you pass. So I played a lot of chess that first year, and I didn't do very well in my first year of my BCom. So I had to do a few subjects over. But it did actually. I mean, that first year was the year that I really pushed chess hard. You know, I was doing well, and but I got to like in my second year, I worked much harder, and I didn't play as much chess, but I still played a lot. You know, I was young, I was single. It's a lot easier to do that if you're younger and single. But I was working a lot harder as well.
Yeah.
So I just kept on playing. Yeah.
But I suppose all of us, I mean, when we go to university, we tend to use some of that free time to play more chess, and studies is coming second. And of course, we know that chess players, generally speaking, from the age of 20 to 25, can actually, that's peak time. I mean, you're getting, you fully capacitated. And Mark, you started playing in the SA close. How did you play against the big guys in the SA close in those years?
So, and I can't remember which year it was, but in my first SA closed, I did quite well. I think I came second or third. I don't remember exactly. No, I wouldn't have come second. I think I came third or so.
Okay.
But I may be wrong. But it was the year, I think, that McFarlane and Rubery had their epic game. And
the one that took place after while the closing ceremony was still on or something.
Something like that, yeah. And I mean, I was really pushing myself really hard, and I think in my earlier years I struggled to win tournaments. I was often like near the top, but then I kind of self-sabotage at the end. You know, I had to kind of get into my own head. And I remember talking to Barry Heimer, who's a psychologist, on the way back from a tournament that I almost won and didn't, came second. And he helped me like think through, you know, how to manage my own like anxieties maybe, because I would stop trying very hard in the last round. I would like take it too easy because I was probably scared of losing. And then once I overcame that, it got easy and I started to win tournaments. And then I really pushed myself really, really hard. It was like my number one passion in my life.
Now, Mark, I always, I mean, when I played against you and when I look at your games, I get the impression that you are a creative, attacking player. Would that describe you? How would you describe yourself?
So it's interesting because I always, you know, I think playing chess, you actually learn more about yourself. And I think I'm a very intuitive person in general. I think primarily with my intuition first and then analysis second. Everyone brings their own personality to chess.
Okay.
And what was interesting actually was during the one SA closed that we had, and we actually hosted that at the Chess Cube headquarters. There was a team from I think it was OFS who were doing a thesis on chess players. Free State, yeah. And they analyzed everyone, and they used laser eye tracking they would give people chess problems, and they would see how do they think. And most people would try candidate moves and look for certain ideas and then eventually come to the path. But I was the only one, and they told me I was the only one that did it totally the opposite. I would find the answer, and then I would check to see if I was right. So I'd always instantly get an answer. It may not always be right. Unfortunately, intuition isn't the most accurate thing in the world. But I would think intuitively and creatively. And so I think it was a mixture of attacking, but certain aspects of positional chess as well. But quite dynamic games. I used to prefer. Like when I first started playing, I used to look at Fischer's games, which I kind of think of him as quite positional in some ways, but also tactical. And then like I like games by the world champions like Alekhine and Petrosian, and but also Tal and those players, and Karpov. So I was a very mixed bag. I mean, there wasn't one particular style that I liked more than any other. I actually liked all the different styles, but my own nature would be to be creative.
But I think, I was looking at there was a game that we played in the league. Actually, it was very interesting. Cape Town versus UWC roundabout it's 96. And in fact, Calvin, we lost 5-0 against Cape Town Chess Club that particular night. Of course, David, everybody was part of Cape Town. But Mark, I mean, I noticed that you played classical, you opened the A file, and then the next moment I saw you play a rook A7, and I'm getting mated on the 7th rank. And it struck me afterwards that, I mean, positional, but there was a tactical flurry at the end. But I also realized when I was reviewing your CV that you were the SA Champion 95 and 96, Mark. So you did a double in that particular year. So you were very active. How did you feel in 95, 96?
Let me think back. So in that era, I mean, how did I feel about my own chess or about chess?
Yeah. How did you feel about your chess? I mean, you were winning the SA Championship twice, 2 years in a row. So you must have been on a high.
Yeah, so I got very involved in chess. In the early 90s, I invented a new way to make chess magazines where I wrote software to read in chess-based data, and then just generate like layouts and design around that. And so so I started a magazine, and I ran that for about a year and a half. But afterwards, because I had these skills, I started doing work in England as well. So I'd fly through to England all the time, and I had deals with Batsford and Cadogan, and I would do books. I was quite involved. I helped Chess Monthly set up a system for their magazine as well to lower their costs. And so I was getting quite involved. And then I go to London very often. I'd actually play for a club there. So I'd often go there like 10 times a year. And I spent a week. I mean, I wouldn't stay long, but then Malcolm Payne, my old friend, would invite me to play for Wood Green, and so I got some serious games actually while I was there, and I met some top players, and it was very exciting actually. So I got very involved in the chess world, indirectly through my work, and it was a blessing and a curse. And so in the beginning it was a blessing because it was just great to be in that environment, but later because I was doing so much work on chess as a business, it was actually a business for me, that I started losing interest in the late 90s.
You stopped playing for quite some time. But I mean, Mark, what many people perhaps don't know, because it's not so well known, is that you were made the captain of the first SA Olympia team in the modern era in '92. What are your sort of first memories of getting there to Manila in the Philippines in '92?
I remember being greeted by a very warm Mabuhay. But it was all I remember was very hot, and I remember traveling there.
Yeah.
I think I remember on the way there was a massive traffic jam in Johannesburg on the way to the airport, and it was my responsibility to make sure everyone got to the plane on time. And it was a nightmare, and we all got there, but I was panicking inside and thinking, oh my word. But we arrived there. We had to get our visas, but then suddenly, like we were thrust into this environment of all these like top players. Kasparov was there, obviously. We were actually we had a session with the president. Who was the president again?
Campomanes.
Yeah, Campomanes, but the actual president of the country as well.
Corazon Aquino.
No, it wasn't Aquino. It was. I forget his name. Anyway, his wife always had a nice pair of shoes on. I remember that.
Marcos.
Oh, that was it. And then it was like it was incredible. I mean, I remember staying in the hotel near the actual playing venue, and it was so hot. It was so hot and humid that even though it was only about a 7 to 10 minute walk from our hotel straight to the premises, we generally took the bus every day because it was just so incredibly hot. But it was just incredible to be amongst all the players. I mean, I remember you being in your hotel room, and every day they'd fill up all your confectionaries and drinks and chocolates.
Yes.
And you would eat them willingly every day, and only later realizing that you weren't allowed to do that.
Those things were free there.
No.
But Mark, those were heady days. Those were heady days nice. Because I mean, '92 first time we're there, and one of our frequent visitors to this show is actually Patrick Lee, and he said he remembered meeting you at the captain's meeting. Yeah, in the Philippines.
Oh yes, yeah, I think I remember that. Yes, yeah. Wow, that's a long time ago.
Now, Mark, your first Olympiad was 1996 in Yerevan, Armenia. And I mean, South Africa caused quite a shock there in that first round by having an excellent round against Israel, which of course could literally be Soviet Union or Russia too for some,
exactly.
For some reason. What is your memories of that first round in Yerevan?
I remember being very scared because I played against Lev Psakas, who was, I think he was a 10 times Moscow champion, and he was a Soviet champion. So I was very nervous. But what I noticed during the game was that obviously we were expected to lose, and everyone there, they didn't speak that, they all spoke Russian. So it was essentially a Russian team, and like a very strong one. But what I did notice was that all of our players was doing somewhat well. Everyone was doing well. And, and I remember, Grandmaster Polga came and was watching, and she was like fascinated by the fact that that we were all struggling, and she was like, it was quite amazing actually, for me too. I mean, in my own game against Pasakis, he played the French defense, and he's a world expert in the French. He wrote the book on the French, and so I was panicking from move one.
Right.
It was quite a scary game for me. But yeah, it gave me a sense that anything's possible. That I mean, obviously, from a technique point of view, there's some really strong grandmasters, and it's very hard to beat them. But I mean, our team came out of nowhere, and I can't remember what our final score was. I think we ended up not getting as many points as we could have.
Two draws.
Oh, the 2 draws.
You scored, 2 draws, 2 draws. But I mean, as Watu was explaining to us in one of the shows, that I mean, you were looking good. There were other boards. Michaelakis was looking good as well. So Watu going all out, and I think Watu lost in that game. But I mean, that is round 1. I mean, in round 1, we're not supposed to do that great, but keep holding our own there. Mark, if I can just go into the other Olympiad in 2002, you played in Slovenia in Bled, and can you tell us a bit about what your memories are of Bled?
Yeah, so I mean, often if you're playing chess, you're sitting at the board and not looking at the city, which is from the famous song "One Night in Bangkok." But in a way, with Bled, I actually did enjoy the city. There was a big hall. It was cold. It was like Switzerland in some ways. It had that look of Switzerland. They had like a Brauhaus and like drinks and like very like Swiss feeling. But there was an island. There was this huge lake with an island, with a little island and a castle on it. And we used to go walking around that island every day. And I remember you and Cormac, who was my trainer. he made me do exercise because and like so I would do walking with him. We go to the gym and stuff, and but in terms of the chess, again, very, very strong. Again, it's just incredible to see all these strong players. I have a memory of Ivanchuk, playing a game and looking up at the sky or walking off and just thinking about the game and never being quite at the board. I remember Kasparov making a speech and thinking, wow, he just speaks so well in English, in a language that is not primary to him, and he makes so much sense. And just being around all these top players and being near them, it was really incredible.
Yeah. Now, Mark, all of these things are, I mean, you had that sort of print magazine in the early 1990s, and I must say that I still have a good few copies, and I actually still make use of the reference material for when I write articles as well. So Mark, that still serves an excellent purpose. And then you played in the Olympiads. You won the SA Open in 2001 here in Cape Town. You got into the Olympiad team 2002, and then you later on, a few years, started Chess Cube. So why did you start Chess Cube? Was it a passion, or how did you see it?
So what maybe people don't know is that in the late 90s, 98, I was headhunted by British Telecom to build an online chess system for them. They actually built a game network. And they wanted chess as a game. So they paid me to build this game, which I did. And then they actually hired Kasparov to launch my game with me. And I think they paid him more for that 1.5 day than they paid me for that year, but I may be wrong. But it was, and then but what happened was they then actually dropped chess and all the other games like backgammon and that, because they decided to go for the fast twitch games like flight simulators and racing games and fighting games. And I was very disappointed because I spent a whole year building this, and I always had this unfinished business in my mind. And so in the interim, I'd done a different company, 2 companies that I was involved with, and then I had a breathing room, and I'd sold my previous company, and I thought, well, I want to go back to this. Chess is a passion. I want to actually build a system for teaching chess, and so ChessCube was meant to be an educational platform initially,
right?
But then 2 of my software developers said, why don't we build a chess playing engine? And I said, no, what for? There's so many of them. And they said, no, we can do it in a few weeks. So I said, okay, try it out and let's see what happens. And they built it. and we'd already built all the chess, like, you know, visuals and stuff like that. So it was actually pretty easy. We built the whole thing in about 3 or 4 weeks. We launched it within 6 weeks, and then we started getting interest in it, and suddenly it took off like crazy. I mean, we were growing by hundreds and then thousands of people every day. And you know, we hit a point, I think our peak was about 150,000 signups in a month. And so it was incredible. And so I thought, oh well, this must be this has to be financially successful because so many people are joining. So I raised funding. It grew. It really grew. But it was actually very hard to monetize because chess players need something to kind of give them the push to actually pay to use the service. So we had a free service, but you could pay for additional things, and it never really got to the point where it was incredibly financially successful. I mean, it did get to a point where it was cash flow positive. But it was never, I could never compete with, at that point, I struggled to compete with chess.com, who were just like, you know, like really like growing radically. And yeah.
But Mark, what many people don't know is that in 2009, I mean, you sponsored the 2007 and 2009 SA Opens here in Cape Town. But what many people don't know is that 2009, we created that first hybrid tournament in which players were playing out of Australia in the middle of the night, and then I think the top 3 boards would be playing at Chess Cube's offices. And I mean, basically, you were the trendsetter in let's call it a hybrid tournament. I mean, nowadays, Calvin and Mark, people don't talk about that, but actually, in my understanding, that was the first tournament of its sort, Mark.
Yes, that's true. So what I wanted to achieve in Chess Cube was the ability to play online chess and offline chess and then mix them up together. So you could either play fully offline, but still actually broadcast the information, or you could play online. But we had this idea of going hybrid, and we actually approached FIDE to ask them, is there a way that we could sponsor this event? And they said, look, we've never done it before. And then it went backwards and forwards. They weren't so keen initially, but then later they gave us the dispensation to do that, and they would actually have the games rated, as long as we had arbiters like managing the games. And so we brought in Gunther van den Berg, and he helped us to officiate and to ensure that we actually managed all the players correctly. And yeah, so it was the first of its type. It was pretty incredible, and that's the kind of thing that I would have liked to have done more of, actually, because I think that's I think it could have changed like so many things, and I'm sure nowadays they do that kind of thing. We also had a tournament system, which was kind of like it was modeled a little bit on the world on poker World Series, where you could have many different events, and then you could work your way up, and you could either buy your way in, or you could play your way in. And so we invented that, and we had other kinds of tournament structure. We had quite a few tournament systems that were really incredible, and so it was really, I was looking for the edge in that period, and for me, tournaments was a key thing. We'd moved away somewhat from the education, but we actually did build an education system as well. So it was very wide. It had a lot of uses in that period, and we actually broke ground.
Mark, I mean, I wanted to make the statement that you were probably about 10 or 11 years ahead of your time, with that hybrid tournament with the SA Open as well. So, and I just want to tell you that, on Mega database that I'm looking at, they actually have that tournament written down as Chess Cube SA Open. It's very interesting. I was looking for SA Open, and then I got it's actually called the Chess Cube SA Open. I must look under C and not under RSA or type of thing. So kudos for you for that one. Mark, before I ask Calvin if there are some questions in chat, I have one question for you. So what is your chess philosophy when you go to play? Are you going to create beauty? Are you going for perfection? What do you go for as a player when you sit down?
Now I have to think back. I think harmony. So I think a lot of what drove me was harmony, the harmonious disposition of the pieces, looking for some inner beauty and harmony in the game. But harmony was always something that I looked at in the game. I always wanted my pieces to work well together. I wanted to actually manage them and the flow and the fluidity of the game.
I think it's a lovely description. Last week, David Friedgood told us about the beauty of the game that he goes for, and how you're talking about the harmony of the game. I think those are it's a good concept. Thanks, Mark, for that. It got me thinking. But while I'm thinking, I'm going to hand you over to Calvin. Calvin, if you can come in at this stage. Thanks, Mark. Calvin, over to you for any questions from the viewer.
Okay, I'm back, guys. So interesting stuff thus far, and yeah, thanks to the new follower as well. Welcome. So let's see. Where's our? I'm gonna read one statement first before the questions. It is actually from Patrick. Patrick is, of course, Patrick Lee Ying. He was also on the show. He says, "Good to see you, Mark, again. Since we last met in Manila Olympiad in 1992." So just following up on what you guys discussed earlier, and.
Wow.
Then Mark Lewis is also in the chat box. Mark says, when you started Chess Cube online, chess was a luxury. Could you ever foresee that now it's the new normal, and will Chess Cube become more active?
So I'm not sure if everyone knows, but we actually shut Chess Cube down about a year ago. Yeah. So it's no longer operating. And the reason we did that is that we actually we had to make a lot of changes. I mean, if I'd known that chess was going to take off so much, I would have probably given it more attention at that point. But I do think chess, it's interesting. Chess is really growing. I mean, this is an incredible period. I mean, during the COVID period, it's just absolutely grown out of all proportion. I mean, Twitch is like really,
it's huge, yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge on Twitch. And my son, who never really played a lot of chess lately, he told me that he's been playing chess. He's been playing on chess.com, but he's noticed that on Twitch, like, chess is massive. And so I think people have gone back to playing. When I was doing Chess Cube, I felt strongly that the age group of chess was probably 6 to 13 was probably like a strong group of people who would play chess. But I do actually think a lot of people are playing chess now. I mean, I've got friends now who want to play chess. I've got a friend that I actually met him for coffee last week, and I beat him badly in about four or 5 games.
Okay.
But I do think it's becoming, I think the world is changing a bit, and I think chess is growing.
No, definitely, I can agree to that, Mark. I'm a full-time coach, as everybody know, and it's been a bit tough here in South Africa, but schools have started to be active again, and I must say that over all the years that I've been at one of my primary schools, like this year, the numbers are massive. They're bigger than ever, and I think that has to do a bit with the marketing and the Twitch business and so on, and people not being able to do all those physical activities. So it is somehow it's booming. One could say a true chess lover. It's not the way we wanted to boom with the physical over the board chess, but at least there's something to hold on to. But okay,
Absolutely.
thanks for that question, Mark. And then we have a bit of a random question here. I don't know if you guys can help us out here. Please forgive me. Our latest, actually, that's the handle name. Please forgive me. Our latest follower is asking, how do I get more involved in chess in Port Elizabeth? I don't know if you guys can give him maybe some pointers online, perhaps. Is there any other way to get involved?
I think the local union is very active, Calvin, in Port Elizabeth. So if he just goes onto the Chessa website, then the details of the Chess Eastern Province, all the coaches and all the tournaments are actually loaded onto the Chess South Africa website.
I think that's the best way to go. Yes, thanks, London, for that. And then Patrick is also saying, Mark, the Chess Cube platform. Okay, so now Chess Cube is also mentioned. So he says, Mark, the Chess Cube platform is the best interface I have played. But how come you could not attract more strong players? Is this the qubit system or So of course we heard Chess Cube is shut down right now. But what's your thoughts on Chess Cube and the players you attracted, Mark?
Yeah, so early on, we focused on South Africa just to get a local base, and then we decided to stay in the same time zone and it's kind of language. We went for England. At that point, we encouraged the Afrikaans players to play in the Springbok Cafe, and the English players to play in the Bulldog Pub on Chess Cube. And then we started growing. We grew in the Philippines and India very strongly. I think it was our model. I think our model, I don't think it was a bad model, actually. I just don't think we executed as strongly as we could have. So the qubit system actually ended up being quite successful. But I just feel like, I mean, it's interesting. Like we adopted something very new, which was a virtual goods strategy, which is we had these virtual currencies, which were qubits and crowns. We had virtual goods like videos, which people could buy, and backgrounds. And it was very much a strategy that was used by Zynga, a company in the US. And I actually met some of the investors who actually advised me to do this. But I think the difference was that Zynga had a poker game, which had millions and millions of active users. And I think it's harder in chess to use that particular model. Later, we found ways to make it work better, but we never really got to the level that it needed to be to actually cover the costs of growing a large team and maintaining it. So I do agree the interface was great. That for me was actually one of the most important things. It was the interface that I could play, and it was really like it was zippy, it was fun. And so like I'm sad to see it go, actually. It was built in Flash, which is no longer supported, and that's one of the main reasons I shut down. Was we'd have to rewrite the whole thing to make it work in the modern era, and we just didn't have the finances and the energy to do that.
Okay, thanks for that, Mark. And then Multi Shake has a question here. How do you think chess can improve in South Africa?
Okay, is that for me or for Lyndon?
Yes, it's for you. I think we've had that question a couple of times, actually. But what's your view?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll probably go back to what I used to think in the old days, but times may have changed. But I do think I think, to be honest, I think it's about kids. I think that we need to really focus on the kids and get the schools deeply involved. And that's on the one level, just to bring a pool of people into the chess world. And some of them will carry on afterwards. But I think a lot of focus has to be on the kids to encourage them to come in. And then if I look at the Turkish model back in the day, where they really they came in on all levels. They brought business in. They encouraged grandmasters. They actually paid grandmasters. Grandmasters became teachers and trainers and book writers, and they could actually become professional people in the chess world. So I do think it's the kids. I think that's the driving force. But I think on the other side of it, you need to also encourage like a group of people who've done really well in chess to actually come back in and to be able to live their life as chess players, and quite a few of them, and then and grow strength on the top.
Okay.
But again, I mean, I've been out of it for a while, so I may not be on the right mark anymore.
Well, that sounds pretty good to me, though, as an answer. So thanks for that, Mark. And the last question here for now is from Mark Lewis again as well. Mark is saying here, I remember being at the launch of the Chess Cube where Kenny Solomon was playing, and I had the privilege to play as well. Do you still have those games? Is the question. That's a tough one.
I'll have to check all my old databases, but I must have it somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all for now in the chat box. Thanks, guys, for the questions. If you do have any last questions, throw them in the chat while you can. So that's all from me for now. Thanks, Mark, for your answers, and over to you, Lyndon.
Thanks, Kelvin. And so, Mark, I've got a few general questions I ask all my guests. Which books did you grow up with, and are there any that you would recommend, even in the modern era, if somebody wishes to improve their game?
Yeah, so I mean, I had a lot of books. I used to go searching for secondhand books. I can't remember the bookstore in Long Street. Was it Clark's?
Clark's.
Yeah, I used to go there and I used to find these like really old, dusty old books. And I mean, if I can think of a few books that stand out. So when I was 13, I studied Nimzovich's Mind System, which is very hard. And it was actually in very Germanic English as well, I think, from what I remember. Yeah. So it was, but it was quite inspiring for me. That changed things for me a lot. Ray Keen's got a book, which I still have now, on, I can't remember what it's called now. It was like a very positional book on wing, maybe it was wing openings or something along those lines. I actually still have that book, but it had like a lot of examples of the reti, and it was incredibly detailed. and
Mm.
that was useful. I think Hans Knoch that had a book on pawn structures,
Yeah,
which
that's
that,
right.
that was that was very powerful actually for me as well. I had the very early on. I had that I think it was Littlewoods end games,
Yeah.
which also really helped me a lot. But then I also had all Fisher's games. I had his 60 best games. I had all of his games. I had all Karpov's games. I had a book of world champions, which had Petrosian and Fisher and Alekhine and everyone all the way back to Capablanca. And I really got incredibly inspired by this. So I know that's older stuff, but I think it's good in chess to go through the fundamentals. People played very romantic chess in the beginning, they just go all out. They didn't understand the opening. They just attacked you with everything. And sometimes it worked. And then later we moved to, maybe more structural games, the more Germanic style. And then later the more Russian, kind of dynamic approach. And I think it's good as a player to actually go through those phases in learning chess. So I think it is good to look at those old players as well.
Mark, thanks for that. And I said to Calvin offline that at the end of the series, I'm probably going to have about 20 to 30 books that I'll be able to recommend that has come from all the different players, because everybody has got, depending on your era, has got a different focus point. Mark, how many tournaments or games should a player generally play a year? You recall Botvinnik said you must play 60 tournament games a year and study for the rest. What would you think on average, not counting our internet bullet games like 10 a day, not counting those, just sort of talking about tournament games? What would you think if you want to improve seriously from let's call it the 1700 to try to get to 2000?
Yeah, I would say about 70 games is probably good. Like seven times 10. I mean, I played a lot. There were times where I played too many games, and I remember taking a 6-month break once. And weirdly, that 6-month break galvanized a lot of my thinking about chess, actually, and I came back stronger.
Okay.
But I think 50 to 100 games a year is actually really important to become strong.
Did you analyze your losses?
I did. I went through all my games. I'd keep them. I'd go through them. I'd want to know what I did and why I did certain things. Some introspection and to understand where I'd made some errors.
Mark, that nowadays we find that the younger players sometimes forget about the old masters, and then of course people are very shy to go over their losses. It's not a great feeling as well. Mark, you've played all over the world chess tournaments. What has been your most exotic town or country that you've played in?
Exotic. I think. I mean, there were some exotic places, like obviously Bled and Manila. I played in Thessaloniki when I was young.
In '84. Yeah. Well, didn't you go to you spoke to Spassky there, asking him how to improve your game, I'm told.
Yeah, and I said to him, "How do you improve your game?" And he said, "But why do I need to improve?" Yeah, so I went there as a freelancer, so I just kind of freelanced around Europe. I mean, I really enjoyed that. I really had a good time in Hastings, at the Hastings event, the one year that I played as well.
Right.
I really enjoyed the environment. It was cold and snowing, but it was quite cozy, and there were some very strong players around. I mean, I played in the US, obviously. I played in Africa. I played a lot of tournaments in Gaborone, in the old days. And obviously, I do think playing in Abuja was really interesting for me. That was maybe my most interesting from an exotic point of view. So we actually played in Abuja, and we flew into Lagos. We went to Abuja. It was incredible. Abuja had just been born, so it was still very fresh and new, and there weren't that many people there yet. But it was incredible. We played in the Noga Hilton, and as I walked through the door, they were having some African Union event, and I saw Robert Mugabe in the foyer, and it was so incredible to actually see all these leaders in one place as well, and they weren't even chess players.
No, those are fantastic times, Mark, in those early years when the continent really opened up as well. In fact, I recall going to Kenya in '93 with Anthony Levy and Caroline Bijou and Yvette Evia. And then I actually didn't realize we were the first South Africans to play in African Junior Championship. You know, so I
Wow,
mean, that
that's
was
incredible.
'93. You know, you don't realize these things until it
No.
actually happens as well. But
Yeah.
Mark, thanks for sharing some of part of your chess life, because of course, Calvin, we've got the chess cube, we've got the publishing, and we've got all the tournament wins as well. But I think our viewers now need to see one or two games that you may have. Mark, would you want to start off with Jonathan Gluckman's game or the other game against Suckers? Which one would you prefer?
I'll start with Jonathan.
All right, Calvin.
Jonathan, I hope you aren't watching.
All right.
Okay,
Okay.
so guys, let me just get things straight here. So you said the Gluckman game. So we've got I don't think we have the game in the study, but I do have it here. We've got a game against you against Gluckman, but I don't think it's the same one.
We unfortunately loaded Ivan Gluckman, not Jonathan Gluckman.
Yeah, but I have the game over here, and then we can just
let's put Jonathan Gluckman in, and then you can make the moves, and Mark can take us through it. It's not a long game, about 28 moves.
Let's actually nice. Just give me a second here, guys. I just want to adjust the chessboard slightly.
Let's just while Calvin is setting up. It's the SA Closed 87, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, here we go.
And tell us about that close, because I mean, I remember in '87 Quinteros came to visit South Africa as well at some stage.
Yeah, and I can't remember much about it specifically. I think, So Quinteros wasn't he in the closed? Yeah, I think he must have been in the closed.
I can't recall if he played in the close. I just know he played Charles on a Sunday. He played Charles over 3 Sundays, and Charles told us they had to wear alternating suits, black and white, depending on which color you were playing.
Really? Oh my word!
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what Charles indicated as well. So
times have changed now.
Times have changed now.
People still wear suits.
Calvin, you ready for us?
Yeah, I've got the game here. So
all right.
So
let's go through
this is against Mark. You have the white pieces against Jonathan Gluckman, 1987 SA Closed.
Okay.
Yes,
just to confirm that.
Right, Calvin.
Okay, so pawn to d4, knight f6, c4. You can see the game, right, Mark?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay, e6, knight to c3. So you are inviting the Namzo. Bishop b4. Pawn to e3, Rubinstein variation. Pawn to b6, and then you went ahead with a3. Interesting choice over here.
Yeah, so I think a3 is something I would not play anymore because often people take them out anyway. So I would probably have done a few other things first.
Yes,
but anyway, I think
Yeah, you can go ahead. What were you thinking?
Yeah, no. So I think I'm sure at the time I must have looked at a number of these variations. So I probably was interested in that line back then.
Okay. But okay, a3 gets played once in a while, especially when d5 is played. But okay, anyway, let's not be too critical on the opening. B takes c3, bishop b7, pawn to f3. Okay, so we're getting the same-ish type of feel again. Pawn to d5, pawn takes.
So I think d5 is not so great, to be honest. I think that's that's actually justifying a lot of the choices. I may have made 1 or 2 poor choices here, and I think d5 actually justifies them.
Maybe you're right. Maybe black should opt for maybe just putting the pawns on the dark squares, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. c5 or d6. Yeah, I agree.
Makes sense, yes. So d5 kind of allows you to undouble whenever you want to.
Yeah.
Pawn takes d5 played immediately. Pawn takes. Bishop d3. Also, and you can stop me at any moment, Mark, where you feel like you want to add something to it. Knight to e2.
Yeah.
And b7.
I mean, I think White's got a solid now. I think with maybe some small inaccurate moves on Black's part. I think White has a slight edge, but not much, like a little bit of an edge. But I think knight to g3, e4, pushing the pawns forward, going for an attack.
That would be
is the
our
goal.
general plan. Yes, yes, indeed, I agree.
But I mean, it's a central pawn roller. I mean that, and black can't really stop it.
Yeah.
Yep. So, okay, castle, rook to e8, knight g3, continuing with the strategy. c5, black has to put some pressure on the center. And this is an
Yeah.
interesting move, maybe typical, but can you just explain this to the viewers? Why rook a2?
Yeah, so, and I'm not sure if it is a good move, but I liked it because I wanted to bring the rook over to the king side to help with the pawn roller and attacking the king side. And I just felt that, you know, if at any point the c5 pawn went to c4 and pushed the bishop back, I'd like my rook out of there. So I think it's an interesting move.
Yeah, I kind of like it as well. Very interesting. And it just shows you that the bishop on c1 can just basically be useful from its original square when you play e4.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
very, very nice creative move, rook a2. Where are we? After rook a2, pawn takes d4 was played. Is the c takes d? Let me just highlight. Oh, c takes d. Rook c8. So black trying to do something on the queen side, and the rook e2. Knight to f8.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
So I think white is all the play here, but if black just settles in with very like stronghold, then it might be hard for white to break through potentially. But I felt quite good here in this position.
Yeah, no, I
mean, you've got knight f5 coming up and all of those things as well. I mean, there's a great attacking options for you. Even queen e1, queen g3, and the d6 pawn is d6 square is also under attack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it almost feels like black needs to kind of just survive the middle game and bank on these outside guys against the single pawn on the queen side.
I mean, I do have a weak c3 square, so I just have to be careful of a rook coming in there at some point if the queen's gone. But but there isn't a lot that, I mean, black doesn't have a lot to play for here. He has one idea which he plays, which I'll let you show.
Yep. So he continues knight f8. Where are we now? Knight f8, bishop b2.
Yep.
Knight to g6, queen d2. And
now I'm ready.
Yeah, now you finally you're ready maybe to go for the center, and black now plays something interesting. Black goes h5.
And it seems like a strange move, but I actually think it's quite strong in some ways. I mean, it's interesting. When I played this game, we didn't really have good computers to help you analyze the game. This afternoon when I was reviewing the game, okay, maybe it wasn't a great. I was using the Stockfish on Light Chess. I don't know how good that is, but it actually recommended h5.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
I think if I'm playing this with white, h5 is probably not the move that I want to see because it's kind of disturbing you in some way. So it makes sense practically. Yeah. I think it's definitely something to look at. So interesting stuff. Black maybe just wants to push the knight here. Sometimes even h3. So h5 played. Okay, so you continue with your strategy e4, h4, knight f5, and is e4 not hanging here? What's happening here?
Yep, e4 is hanging there. E4 is hanging.
Yeah. Right. So now I must say I looked very, very. So the reason I like this game is because I looked very, very deeply into the tactics of this position. I went very far, and because of that, I saw something which in fact, looking at this today with the chess engine, I realized I wasn't winning. And I thought I was. I always thought I was winning all the way through from the next couple of moves from now. But I think I was definitely okay, or if not slightly better, and potentially winning. And he made 1 or 2 errors, I think, which made it easy for me to win. But I saw very far, and giving up the e-pawn in this manner was planned.
Aha, interesting stuff. So you invited this swing of things here. So knight takes e4. So black accepts. Bishop takes. Am I doing this? Pawn takes, knight takes, bishop takes, and then it says rook takes e. Okay. I need to just actually go further. Sorry, guys. Bishop takes e4, rook takes e4. No. Sorry. Let's just make. Okay. So pawn takes e4, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, bishop takes e4. And then the rook takes e4. Okay, I've got it right. Aha, so here comes a moment, maybe, that we should just stand still. So it seems like black has just won a pawn, but this is, of course, planned from your side. So you spotted a weakness. And something that the viewers might not immediately see. In fact, I didn't see it immediately, but there's some hidden power with this bishop on b2. And with this attacking and creative play that you guys have mentioned from Mark's play, knight takes g7 all of a sudden on the board. So
yeah, no, it looks crazy, and but that's a move I planned like a few moves back, and some follow through.
Wow. Okay. Here we go.
Jonathan, if you're watching, I did see it. Jonathan claimed that I never saw it, and I was just lucky.
we will invite him in a week's time to find out.
Okay, so knight takes g7. Black continues, rook takes e2, queen takes e2, and black sees nothing better but to accept the knight on g7.
Right.
And of course,
so I'm a piece down now.
You are piece down, but you've unleashed this diagonal for the bishop.
Yeah.
King g8. And how to continue? What was the? Tell me, have you calculated everything up until the next move as well? When?
Yes.
Was it a bit of intuition, or did you calculate everything?
No, I saw the next move, and I saw, but then it got vague for me. But I saw 1 and 2 moves afterwards, and I looked at a few different lines, and I felt I was either better or at least dynamically equal in everything that I could see, but I couldn't see the very end. But I did see rook takes f7 when I played my knight to f5 the first time.
Brilliant. Rook takes f7. This must have been really tough on black to see all of this happening. King takes f7.
And it isn't really a choice there, Calvin, because I mean, a rook g7 is being threatened.
Apologies. In fact, there is something else here. After rook takes f7, black takes rook c7. But let's just see what would happen after king takes f7.
Well, so, check on e6.
Okay, king f8 is forced.
I suppose there's now queen takes knight and then some attack, or is that an idea?
Sorry, can you go back a bit?
Yeah, sure.
I need to check my Do we actually have the right position? Let me just double check. I've actually got another board open with some of my notes. I'm going to just...
By all means, if you can just double check as well.
Yeah.
It seems like...
Oh, no. It just cleared my game.
Oh, no. Let's just check actually, in the meantime. King f8, we can take here. There's some threats here. Bishop g7. Let's see what this online engine actually says about this. Okay, so it says black is doing good. But I mean, practically, it does seem slightly difficult. Maybe black should play rook c7 here. Are we missing something?
It is the position, Mark, because I've got it from the SA Closed Chess Player. The SA Player.
Okay.
Interesting stuff here. In fact, instead of taking the knight, guys, there's this interesting idea of going queen f5 check. Wow. Okay, that looks strong because the king can't go to g6. You take on g6 with check. And e8 also takes with check, but if the king goes to e7...
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Then you pick up the queen at least and the knight and everything crumbles. So this is winning for white.
Yeah.
So surely you saw that one.
Yes, I did see that.
We just needed to...
I couldn't see it tonight.
I don't know. I was going to say that you guys have to wipe off the cobwebs, but I don't have an excuse for myself here. So,
and Mark Lewis also saw queen f5, Calvin.
Yes, Mark Lewis said queen f5. So this is a beautiful, actually, this is a very beautiful combination. Queen f5, queen e6, and then queen f5, the subtle move over there, guys. Not queen takes knight. Just playing everything with tempo. Beautiful stuff. So rook takes f7, well planned there. And... after rook takes f7, your opponent replied with rook c7.
Yeah.
So he also sensed the danger over there.
Yeah.
So after rook f7, rook c7, am I reading this correctly? Oh, rook f6. I thought rook f8. I thought I saw rook f8. So rook f6. The rook is still alive, hitting the knight on g6. Queen takes d5 played, and black desperately just wants to maybe get queen g2 in just to get the pieces off, but
Yeah.
it's a bit too late for that.
And I think here I don't think it's winning for me actually, but I think it's strong and it's hard for him.
You actually
Surely it
continue.
must be winning.
You continue with queen e8, and that's the end of the game I have here.
Sorry. Sorry. Let me just double check that. Yeah, sorry. So I'm winning this one.
Oh, okay. Was this the end of the game, Mark?
Yeah.
Oh, so he resigned here. Okay.
Yeah, I think there were some moves just before he. Let me just double check this.
Sure.
Rook f6, queen takes d5. Yeah, so I think queen. Okay, instead of queen takes d5.
Yeah. Instead of queen takes d5. What could he do?
No. I think it's over now. I think I can move it 2 back. He still had some chances to get like a rook to get the queen off, but I can't remember the exact line. He could have got to a point where he could have maybe stopped with the queens. Just had a slightly worse endgame, but bishops of opposite color. But unfortunately,
I think you posed your opponent quite a lot of problems if us three are trying to solve or find a moment where black could have improved. So a lot of practical problems. Rook f7. It says queen d5 immediately, perhaps, instead of rook c7.
I think that's what it was. Yeah, I think queen d5 gives him. It's almost And then if I go rook g7.
Rook g7, yeah.
I can play rook g7, and then he goes king f8. I think in this position.
Yeah, king f8, and yeah, even if you check on the f file, you can still run to e8, I suppose. So it's not so easy. Yeah.
It's not so easy. It's not that clear.
It's scary for black, but
yeah.
Okay, I think you can at least get my engine now. I'm struggling to get it on, but it said that it was equal. I mean, there must be something here for white as well.
Yeah, I think it's slightly better for me, but it's pretty much equal. I think it would have been a draw if he'd got it exactly right.
I mean,
so I never saw all of that in the early stage.
Yeah, why can't you just take on g6 and with rook takes g6 and just keep the attack? Because
I can take on g6.
Take on d5, check, and take on g6 perhaps.
Yeah, because the king has got no pawns in front of it.
Yeah.
Rook f6 check after this, and queen g4.
Looks scary.
And you have
scary for black.
Yeah, it does look scary. I know. But the engine said, I remember looking at this earlier today, and the engine said maybe equal.
Yeah, but okay, you know what? This other interview with Boris Gelfand, there's something random. I saw this one interview with Boris Gelfand. He played a beautiful game against this dude, and then they asked him. The interviewer asked him afterwards, "Hi Boris, you played a beautiful game. Seems perfect, but the engine says at some moment your opponent could have actually drawn the game." And he's like, "Yeah, but I wasn't playing an engine. I was playing a human being." So
exactly.
So I mean, the engine could have said this and that, but it seemed like the swing of the game seemed like you had all the pressure, and it looked. Yeah. It's a beautiful game. So well done, well played.
Thanks very much.
No, thanks for that one. Let's look at our last game, Mark. You still got about 10 more minutes for us?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, is this the one? Which one is this?
The Lev Suckers, 1996, round 1, South Africa versus Israel.
Yeah. So this game, it was hard for me because I was scared. I was scared even in the beginning because I think his rating was 2,600. So he was the highest rated player I'd ever played.
Okay, and this is the French game that you're talking about.
Yeah, and he played the French defense, which at that point he was the world's expert on the French. Ooh. He wrote the book on the French.
Okay.
And he played it against me. So
how good is your French?
So I tried to avoid it, as you'll see.
Okay, here we go. In fact, now Mark, you can actually take over because it is uploaded, so you can actually take over.
Okay, cool. So so he played the French. So I decided if I played it into the normal French, I think he would have just known everything in the world. So I played something that I play when I want to avoid my lack of opening preparation, which is to play d3, like a King's Indian attack. And then he played c5, which is like but it's still the same structure as a French kind of structure, e6, c5, d5 eventually.
Yeah,
probably. So I just carried on playing pretty standard stuff. Didn't have to think too much. Fischer played this kind of opening a few times, and so I felt comfortable enough, with this kind of opening. I'd seen a lot of Fischer games, Karpov games, with this kind of style. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm just going to go back to A4. So I think A4 maybe is not 100% right. I think C3 is probably what I would think of playing more today. So I think back then. But I know why I played it. I saw Karpov do that a few times in similar positions, but it doesn't quite fit this as well as C3.
Yeah, agreed.
But he castled D5.
Yeah, Mark, just for the younger viewers, just for them to know that Lev Sakis won the 81 and 82 Soviet Championship. And in 81, he was joint champion with Kasparov, but he was first because he had beaten Kasparov in the individual match. So that just shows the strength of the opposition that Mark is playing in.
And that's the reason I was so fearful. So I'm playing standard stuff, but I already feel, now I played C3. So I already feel that he's kind of okay. I don't think I've proven anything really dramatic here, unfortunately. And if anything, I started feeling concerned that he was just going to use grandmasterly technique and outplay me.
Okay.
So I was just thinking how to kind of hold on here. And he played Bishop A6, which, that's not the only move, but it's interesting because it puts pressure on D3, and it's hard for me to find the right move because my knight's on D2. It can't go to C4. It's kind of stuck there. If my queen goes to C2, the bishop can come in to D3, and it just puts a lot of pressure on white. White doesn't really have much going for him here, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I decided to do something different. I decided that I was going to be outplayed. I couldn't see anything really strong for me. I'm probably slightly worse already, but not like losing. But I decided to sacrifice a pawn and get a blockade in the center. So what I did was I swapped pawns in the center, and I pushed my D pawn forward, which is losing my pawn. But my goal here was to actually dominate the D4 square, put a blockade on and block the D5 pawn, and then use that to kind of radiate strength in a position that was currently, I thought, quite weak. And I felt, that was my chance to at least avoid being crushed, and if anything, to put some pressure back on him.
Interesting stuff. Very interesting.
And you weren't afraid, Mark. You're giving up a pawn.
No, I actually felt better about this than anything else I've played up to this point.
Okay.
But I think what was interesting, I'd seen probably a few Karpov games where maybe, I think it was Karpov, and maybe Petrosian, where they'd done a similar thing. They'd given up a pawn in the center to blockade the D4 square against the D5. So I probably had seen this theme before a few times. And for me, it just felt like the best way to proceed in a difficult position.
Okay.
So he took me, and then he took with his bishop, and I played knight f3. So suddenly, his bishop on a6 isn't necessarily so great anymore. His bishop on d4 has to move. I'm not saying he doesn't have a bad position. He's probably still better. But I'm not totally sure that it's an easy position for him to play, even though he is a grandmaster. It's actually very easy for me to play now because I don't have to think so deeply. I can actually just do very standard things, dominate the d4 square.
Okay.
Use my c1 bishop very effectively, put pressure on him. And now start the blockade. And now his d5 square is always going to be a worry. I've got my rook on e1. I've got a bishop here. I've got the blockade. My c1 bishop's going to move to a strong position, put pressure on him. So strangely enough, out of a very bad-ish position, a hard one to play against a grandmaster, I actually felt this was an easier game to play against a grandmaster. I still expected I probably was going to lose, but I thought maybe I had a chance to kind of hold it together.
Okay. Very interesting stuff. Queen d7 played okay. And a5.
Yeah. So and I did look at. I don't think the computer saw a5. So I found something the computer didn't value. But I wanted to soften up his position a bit more. I just felt like I wanted to get my rook on a1 more into the game. I wanted to create another target on b6 on a dark square, and put some pressure on his bishop on a6. So for me, it felt I liked it.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Softening your opponent's position. I like it. So just casually continuing as if you didn't, as if you're not a pawn down. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just pretending I'm fine.
Okay, so
Well, the only pawn up here is the one on d5, which I don't think of as a pawn. I just think it's a phantom. Yeah, look, I'm putting pressure now on that d5 pawn. I've got the rook, the bishop, my queen's on d1. His knight on e7 is holding it together. But I can attack that with the bishop, and you know he's got some problems to worry about actually. So bishop e7 naturally holding, moving his bishop to safety, holding his d5 pawn and square, and then now putting more pressure on the e7.
Okay.
Which, by the way, in hindsight, wasn't a good move because you can see what I did afterwards. I don't think it was a good move. He played rook e8, and then I actually retreated my bishop to a strong square. But I could have gone there in the first place, which would maybe have been better.
Okay.
So I think I lost a move there, which I think upset me at the time. I seem to remember. Now he did something really, so he's a grandmaster. He's playing against somebody that he's expected to beat. He needed to find a way to create play. He is a pawn up, and so he did something unusual, I thought. I was surprised, actually, at this move, because what happens now is he has to worry about his king. And I think that's a theme that would carry on. I mean, the game didn't carry on very long, but I think even into an end game, I think he'd be worried about his king on the dark squares.
Maybe just something, Mark, instead of, if we take it from Black's point of view, the most natural move would probably be playing the rook somewhere, but now this pawn is hanging. So you do have pressure on that. Maybe sometimes you can move the knight and then this c5 square, the dark squares, especially with this bishop also beaming up there. Don't know if Black really wants to play a6. Then you look at this bishop on b7. So there's some concerns. I can kind of see why he did it, but it does seem a bit drastic. But I mean, you hats off to you. You actually did something to put him under pressure to make the decision to take the knight. So
yeah, absolutely. I actually think that he's under a fair amount of pressure, irrespective of that pawn. I think he's going to be under continual pressure for the rest of the game.
All of your pieces look beautifully placed. They are just very naturally and strongly placed. So very interesting pawn sack.
Now, Mark, in the chat room, the guys were asking, did Black have an option of not taking the d4 pawn because there seemed to have been underlying pressure from Black's side if he didn't take the d4 pawn? What would you say to that comment?
I think, look, if it doesn't take it, I could even play. Well, maybe I don't know if I play knight b3.
Yeah, you could play knight b3 afterwards, maybe entice him to play c4 and just drop back.
Yeah, and then move back. Yeah, so I would maybe do that to kind of force his hand a bit.
Or even dc, bc, and then knight b3. So there's some threats over there.
Also, his d5 pawn is weak. So if he doesn't take me, at some points I could go d takes c5 and put quick pressure on his d pawn. So I can't do that immediately, but I think if he leaves it too long, there is that pressure on that point.
Yeah, I think the hanging pawns would probably give white some good play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there's something maybe to point out. If Black had played bishop b7 instead of bishop a6, maybe the pawn sack would have not been as efficient in that case. Because you had some momentum with the rook on the a file, and the bishop was kind of misplaced on a6 anyway. So, but I really like this pawn sack with the bishop on a6. Maybe it wouldn't have been as effective with the bishop on b7, but then Black wouldn't have had the pressure on d3. So
I probably wouldn't have thought of doing it then if his bishop wasn't b7.
Very interesting game. Okay.
So anyway.
So he gave up his bishop. Bishop takes knight.
Yeah. Okay. So he gives it the bishop. I take him back. Obviously now I've got still a blockader. I mean, a bishop's not always as good a blockader as a knight, but in this case I think it is because it blockades and it puts pressure on the a7 and the king.
Yeah.
So I think
does
it's strong.
Everything. Beautiful piece.
Yeah, and then he played knight f5, and I think this was his goal, to try and dislodge that bishop now. So I took his rook off. He takes with the rook, and now I pin the knight to the queen, and I think that kills his entire idea. I think
Yes.
after that he's got nothing anymore in this position.
Yeah, because even if you one day swap off, I mean, there's no need to swap off immediately. Even if you one day swap off your in this opposite color bishop Milgram, your bishop just looks way better than his
Yeah.
active wise. So
Yes.
okay, yeah, that kills everything with bishop h3. a7
Yeah.
is also
So I
hanging.
think exactly. I think here he's got nothing. I mean, he can try and hold on to his extra pawn, but I don't think that's going to necessarily help. I think the endgame even is going to be. If I had an endgame where the queens came off, well, say the bishop takes a knight. Well, in fact, I'll go through that quickly. So he plays a6 to hold his pawn together. Oh yes, that's right. Okay, yeah. So that's actually a very strong move. It just stops any dynamics that he had. Oh no, sorry. Oh yeah, is that right?
Yeah, so
Yes,
if rook
yeah,
takes,
that's
I
right.
guess
Yeah.
you can play here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then you just up an exchange. Very nice move.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now he's actually got some serious problems, and I don't know if you overlooked this. He may have, but I did. I felt very comfortable now, and I was actually moving really quickly at this point. I was starting to move quicker because in the next couple of moves, I was moving quickly because I felt really confident. I felt like an easy hold this, even against Super Grandmaster. Yeah, and now putting pressure on the knight.
Interesting comment here in the chat box. King also says, okay, good vision, Mark, also on the a5 stretch more. And then he says, looks like after the phantom on d5, Black was chasing some ghost. Okay.
I like that comment.
Interesting stuff. Thanks, King also, for the comment. Okay, queen d3, so just centralizing, basically.
And he plays h6, which I'm not sure what the meaning of that move is. In hindsight.
Okay, of course you're hitting the knight on f5 as well. There. Okay.
He probably he wants a square for his king to escape in case things happen and suddenly the rooks go to the back rank.
Yeah.
So it just gives him that little bit of escape. But now I just take. And now we get an endgame which, even though I'm a pawn down, I actually feel better, or at least equal, because I don't think he can do much. It's always hard when you have a bishops of opposite color endgame with a rook each, and one of the kings is under attack. Then but it's hard for me to get in here, and that's the problem for me. Is like, where's my entry point into the game? Yeah. Because his bishop's holding his c8, where square. The bishop holds his rook's holding his bishop. It's not easy for me to actually make anything of it. So I played this move just to swap the rooks off and get a draw. And then we just agreed to a draw. He was just going to swap off, and I felt no one has anything here. I mean, even though he's got messed up pawns, I'm a pawn up. It doesn't matter. Bishops of opposite colors. It's going to be a draw. And so with that, I drew against my first really strong grandmaster.
Cool game. Very cool game.
But Mark, well done. I mean, Calvin making his Olympiad debut against an ex-Soviet double champion, and then he draws his opening Olympiad game as well. But Mark, you had a good Olympiad. I mean, in '96. I mean, I think 2 or 3 draws and then a few nice wins as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I could remember all my games as well as you do. I'm going to have to go back and look at them again. It's actually very bad that I don't play properly and study chess, because even though I play 1 minute chess and occasionally 3 minute chess, it's not enough. And I think looking back at your old games is maybe some inspiration, and then obviously looking at other games too, I think is good.
No.
So.
Well, if Mark, just to tell you and the viewers, probably my favorite game from your '96 Olympiad was the one against John Shaw, and quite a nice little attacking game as well there. But I mean, you built it up and then you went for it. So I quite enjoyed that one as well. And then you also had a draw against Panikas from Greece, and he's become quite a strong grandmaster as well. So I mean, you are holding your own against very, very top players in the world, Mark. So I mean, well done on that Olympiad debut.
Thanks very much.
As well.
Thank
Calvin,
you.
Those are our 2 games that Mark has agreed to show us tonight. And Mark, thank you very much for coming onto the show tonight, because one learns so much just by going through these games. And South African players, generally, we tend to think that we can't play these top guys. But here you've shown us you sacrifice your pawn on d4 after being a little under pressure with that bishop on a6. But I mean, you continued with that concept of building the blockade on the d4 square, and you held it together, and right until the end you had your bishop on that square as well. So Mark, thanks for that really, and just for giving us some of your time tonight.
Thank you, Lyndon and Calvin. You know, it's been great fun for me because I don't get to do these things as often as I'd like to. So it was really great to be on the show.
Fantastic.
No, it's super, man.
Let's just go over back to the studio, guys. Over yes, and just get myself back on. So yeah, no, from my side as well, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. This creativity that you guys have mentioned. Actually, this game also shows that the last one that we looked at, you don't need to just be creative when you're comfortable and you have nothing to do it. You can just freely attack your opponent. When you're under pressure as well, you can come up with creative ideas of equalizing or even putting your opponent under pressure from a tough position. So very interesting games. Guys, these Lyndon mentioned earlier that there's a lot of clues and tips in the reflection series that we can take for like books and so on. Also, I've been also mentioning that take your time, go through your mega database, check out certain players' games, and I'm definitely going to check out Mark's games again. I have looked a bit at these games, so that should be an interesting one as well for me and for you guys. So do take a bit of time to do that. Once again, thanks, Mark, for taking your time out to join us this evening. It's been a pleasure having you over here by us. And now I would just like to ask Lyndon, who are we seeing next week on Reflections?
Yes, Calvin, we have an interesting guest next week. He's flying in from all the way from New York City, and he's Mr. Gerald Times, and he visited South Africa around about 2011, 2012. He stayed here for about 2.5 years, and he's going to come tell us about what he's been doing over the last 8 to 9 years there in the United States of America. So we look forward to seeing Mr. Gerald Times.
Fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that. Gerald, of course, I played with him at the Steiner's Chess Club. Very nice gentleman and has a lot of knowledge on chess and coaching. So looking forward to that one. Yeah, I think that's all from my side. Lynn, do you have any more words or is that...
No, I'm fine. Mark, thank you very much, and we will stay in touch with you. And good luck with all your ventures, because on Google they describe you as a serial entrepreneur.
I am a serial entrepreneur.
Fantastic.
But I don't eat breakfast. Okay.
Enjoy,
Thanks, Lyndon. Thanks,
guys.
Calvin.
Enjoy your evening. Cheers.
Bye. Okay.
Bye.